Minister and all the administration present today in the meeting, the Standing Committee on Infrastructure, where we will be deliberating Vote 10 of the infrastructure in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill. From my side, Derek Wessels, the chairperson, I would really like to welcome everyone, and I hope for a fruitful discussion. If I could maybe ask the members of the committee just to state your attendance, please.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Dave Bryant, member of the committee.
Good afternoon. I'm Leon van Wyk, member of this committee. Good afternoon to Chair, to Minister, to HOD and Department, as well as committee members.
Good afternoon, Brett Heron, member of the committee.
Good afternoon, Chair and colleagues. Basil Petrus.
Good afternoon, Ted Lecker.
Afternoon, Noma Franchim Bombo.
Thank you very much, and that then deals with the attendance of all the members of the committee. I would like to welcome firstly the minister and the whole department. So I am going to ask, I'm not sure under what name the minister has. There we go. Has joined. Minister, I am going to hand over to you. You can, if there's any forward that you would like to discuss, you're more than welcome. So I'm going to hand over to you to firstly introduce the department, and then thereafter you are welcome to go straight into the details of Vote 10 of the infrastructure, whereafter we will then deal with the questions and answers. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson, and good afternoon to you and the members of the Standing Committee of Infrastructure. Chair, I'll start with the HOD, and from on there down we'll go according to rank and file, noting that some of our officials are also online. So I'll first go with those that are physically present with me, and then we'll go to that are present online. So HOD.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Chantal Smith, Head of Department.
Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Pauline van der Merwe, Acting DDG, Strategy Planning and Coordination.
Good afternoon all. Michael Hendrickse, Acting DDG, Transport Infrastructure. Good afternoon, Mel Burgess, Spokesperson to Minister Simmons.
Good afternoon all. Nicolette Levens, Ministry of Infrastructure.
Good afternoon, Chairperson and members. Mujahid Solomons, Deputy Director, Management Accounting.
Good afternoon all. Shafida Andrews, Acting CFO for the Department of Infrastructure.
Good afternoon, Karan Hartneck, Head of Ministry.
We'll now go to the online, Chair.
Good afternoon, Rivka van der Voort, Director, Management Accounting.
Good afternoon, Renee Cook, Acting DDG, Provincial Public Works.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Brian Denton, Acting DDG, Human Settlements Branch.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Nathan Adrianse, Director responsible for Public Information and Stakeholder Relations.
Okay. Chairperson, I believe that is the full complement of our team that are present today. Before I hand over to the HOD and the team for the presentation, just a few opening remarks, but in the nature of the SOPA theme, getting it done, I believe in my opening comments is focused on getting this session done so we can get to the work on the ground as soon as possible. And now, colleagues, thank you for this opportunity, Chair, firstly to represent the 2026-2027 budget of the Department of Infrastructure. Our budget sets out the resources and priorities required to sustain infrastructure delivery in a constrained fiscal environment, while ensuring that expenditure remains disciplined, transparent, and aligned with the needs of the people of the Western Cape. Over the past year, the department has continued to focus on unlocking reallocated public land, strengthening our roads delivery program, and improving the systems through which infrastructure projects are planned and implemented. Projects such as Leeuloop, Founders Garden, and the upcoming Press Switch development form part of this ongoing work. We have also introduced reforms to improve efficiency, including a revised roads delivery model. One such element of the new roads delivery model was the launch of the Roads for You app, and thank you to the members who I know have downloaded the app already. The use of digital tools to strengthen project management and new approaches to financing infrastructure so that we are less exposed to uncertainty in national transfers. In the year ahead, Honourable Chairperson and members, the department will continue to prioritise maintenance, the upgrade of gravel roads, and I'll expand more on this in my budget speech, the delivery of catalytic projects, and the responsible use of public funds. Honourable Chairperson and members of the Standing Committee, I therefore, together with the department, welcome the oversight of this committee, and we look forward to engaging you on the details of our budget. And with that, with your permission, Chair, I will now hand over to the HOD and the team. I thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I'm going to ask Rivka van der Voort to lead us into the presentation.
Thank you. You can let me know once the presentation comes up.
I can see it on my side.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'll go straight ahead into the allocations for the department and the overview. If we look at the MTIF allocation for the department, we'll see that in 26-27 we received the 9.86 billion, 27-28 9.13, and then 9.43 billion in the outer year 28-29. The allocations over the MTIF, we see that there has been a reduction since our adjustment budget allocation of 25-26, which was 10.406 billion. And this is due to the 25-26 allocation, including our disaster relief funds, which was a total of 637 million, which is not carried through into the MTIF, as well as the human settlements AFR allocation of 227 million. The department largely allocates funding to acceleration projects in human settlements through the replenishment of the reserve from revenue retention over collection on the first-term finance projects, and this takes place during our adjustment estimate process. If we look at the movement from 26-27 into 27-28, we see a further reduction. This is due to our PRMG incentive portion of the grant, allocated only in the first year of the MTIF, which amounts to 736 million, not carried through, as well as the depletion of our roads asset finance reserve after 26-27. If we look at the budget breakdown, we will see that 63% of the total allocation for the department is allocated in restricted funding or non-discretionary funding for the department. The non-discretionary funding is either national conditional grants or provincial earmarked allocations, COE and taxes such as rates, as well as municipal services. And the remaining 37% is left for the all other mandated programs, such as maintenance and refurbishment of all infrastructure assets and stock, leasing of accommodation, security, bursaries, training and development, operational costs and skill development programs, to name a few. Then if we look at the program breakdown, we can see that 95% of the department's allocation is allocated to our department's infrastructure programs, which is program 2, 3, and 4, public works, transport infrastructure, and human settlements, with 4% allocated to administration and 1% to our tiny but big impact program, community-based programs. If we look at our conditional grant, the department received a PRMG conditional grant of 1.791 billion. Included in that, as I mentioned, is the 736 incentive portion, and then 1.559 billion for our HSDG, Human Settlements Development Grant, a reduction from 1.66 billion in 25-26, And then 226.4 for our informal settlements upgrading grant, a reduction from 326 million in 2025-26. We also received an EPWP allocation of 5.665 million, which has increased from last year's 2.079 million, however, still significantly less than the 16 million the department received in previous years. And in order for the department to ensure continuity of the program, the department closes the gap through equitable share funding. If we look at our earmarked allocation, the department has a total earmarked allocation of 354.842 million in 26-27. Included in that is our energy initiatives, 43.4 million, and then 134.5 for refurbishment and rehabilitation at our child and youth care centers, 69.4 for maintenance at child and youth care centers, 19.3 for our occupational health and safety projects, including fire safety, and then 6.5 million for the relocation of the procurement client center. And additionally, the department received 2 new earmarked allocations for human settlements operational costs of 20 million, as well as 61.7 million for our modernization program. In terms of personnel, currently the department is 73% capacitated, but additional 5% has been granted or approved for filling. The department experiences high attrition rates in our infrastructure programs, and funding is managed through close attrition monitoring. The department has 895 vacancies, with 102 of these in active recruitment processes, and then 279 people in various learnership programs, interns, and skill development programs throughout the department. If we move on then to our program breakdown, we will see that a reduction over the MTIF in program 1 from 379.2 million to 252.8 from 26-27 to 27-28, directly related to the decrease in earmarked funding allocated for our energy initiatives. For the cost drivers for our administration program is our very successful Masakisizwe bursary program, our earmarked energy allocation, training and development allocation, economic hub section, and Western Cape infrastructure strategy and implementation plan. In terms of the breakdown or composition of the budget for the program, as expected in the administration program, majority of the funding is COE with 39% goods and services, which includes operational costs as well as cost drivers listed previously. Besides the Masakisizwe bursary program paid under the 5% allocated for transfers and 1% allocated for capital operational requirements of the department. In terms of the personnel, currently the program is 77% capacitated with an additional 3% approved for filling, 96 vacancies, of which 10 of these are in active recruitment. If we move on to our public works program, we can see an increase from 25-26 to 2.785 billion in 26-27. This is carried through over the MTIF. In 25-26 adjustments, the program reprioritized capital CYCC funding into 26-27, as well as the additional earmarked modernization funding received. If we look at cost drivers, the department's maintenance program, which includes scheduled and operational maintenance, totaling 591.8 million. And then we have leases of 248.3 million, 180.3 million for municipal services, and 346.7 for our capital refurbishment projects. We have an allocation for rates of 758.9 million, which does not include the impact of the new general valuation roll effective 1 July 2026. Then if we look at the breakdown of the budget or composition of the budget, it's 12% allocated to COE, 14% to capital projects, 27% of the program's allocation goes to rates and taxes, and 47% goods and services, which includes our maintenance programs, the management of our immovable assets, plannings, including facility conditions assessments and operational requirements for our program support. In terms of personnel, 87% of the posts in the program is currently filled with an additional 6% approved for filling, 72 vacancies and 20 of these in active recruitment. Then moving over to our transport infrastructure program, we see a reduction in the allocation for transport infrastructure, but as explained in the departmental overview, The reduction is due to the disaster relief allocation not carried through and a reduction in the asset finance reserve, and then further reduction in the allocation into 27-28 due to the once-off PRMG incentive portion that is only allocated in the first year, as well as the depletion of our roads asset finance reserve. In terms of the cost drivers, the program's cost drivers are the maintenance programs, rehab and refurbishment of roads, upgrade and additions, as well as the associated planning and design fees, with 365 million allocated to district municipalities. Then, in terms of the composition of the budget, 65% is allocated to capital, which includes the rehab and refurbishment of the roads, upgrading and additions, as well as capital maintenance projects. 23% allocated to goods and services, 11% COE, and 1% to our financial assistance transfers to the municipalities. Then if we look at the personnel, the program is only 69% capacitated currently, with an additional 6% approved for filling. 591 vacancies in the program, of which 69 of these are in active recruitment processes. Then looking at our, sorry, let me move on. If we look at our human settlements program, we see a reduction from 25-26 to 26-27, and this reduction carried through over the MTEF, as indicated in the department overview. This is as a result of a reduction in both our HSDG and ISUPG grants, with HSDG seeing an almost 400 million reduction over the MTEF. Then, in terms of the cost drivers, with the grant funding 89% of the total allocation for the program, it remains our main cost driver, with our asset management program titled these restoration priority programs in the department. 20 million earmarked allocation for human settlements operational costs is also listed. If we look at the composition of the budget, it looks a bit different than the previous programs. This is just to highlight that the program is 89% grant funded, with 8% of that to COE, 1% rates and services, and just 2% remaining to fund all other costs to keep the program running. In terms of personnel, the program is currently at 71% capacitated, with an additional 7% approved for filling, 89 vacancies, and 3 of these in active recruitment processes. Then finally, our community-based program, we see an increase from 25-26 to 26-27, and that carried through over the MTEF, as funding was reprioritized within the department towards an increased intake for the skills development program. Cost drivers for community-based programs is skills development, including artisans and national youth service learnerships, contractor development, and empowerment impact assessment programs. Then when we look at the composition, we can see that 63% of this program is allocated towards COE, because it includes the stipends paid to those on the skills development programs, 35% allocated to goods and services for the operational requirements of the program, and 2% capital for purchasing of machinery and equipment. In terms of personnel, 56% of posts is currently filled, with an additional 2% approved for filling, 47 vacancies, and currently none of these are in active recruitment process. Then if we look at the department's budget and service risks, we have listed a few of these previously, and it remains that the energy performance certificates is an unfunded mandate. Facility conditions assessment for public works, the inability to meet GIAMA requirements without significantly increasing the allocation. Increased rates with a new general evaluation role that I had previously indicated, effective 1 July 2026. The new citywide cleaning fee implementation on the 1st of July 2025. Then municipal services, including electricity, which increases above the inflation. Increased security due to land and property invasions, flood damaged roads of 1.8 billion required to address 70% of the road damage. Only 45% or 818 million was received, excluding the Cape Nature allocation. PRMG, I've mentioned this before, and just the timing of the appropriated allocation is not aligned to the budget cycle, making the planning difficult when we do get the once-off incentive allocation. Asset finance reserve, also mentioned previously, depleted by 27-28, which affects large-scale road infrastructure projects. Then the maintenance backlog of the 34.2 billion, which is exacerbated by the floods. Inadequate riverbed cleaning and clearing by Department of Water and Sanitation and private landowners to prevent debris damage to bridges and roads. No funding for facility conditions assessment for the departmental housing stock in order to inform maintenance plans. And also, as mentioned before, human settlements portfolio is funded largely by conditional grants. Then we've also included just the listing of our key projects for our infrastructure programs. I'm not going to go through these as this is listed in the budget book, but these are the key projects for public works, transport infrastructure, as well as our human settlements programs. Thank you.
Chairperson, that concludes our presentation. And I now hand over the session back to you for questions so we can get it done. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much, Minister, and the administration for the presentation. Members, we are now going into the question and answering sessions. So we will do the normal 3 rounds of questions and answers. If I can please ask when we pose a question that we just indicate the page number that we are referring to with regards to the questions, just to make it a little bit easier for the department to answer. So with that, members, over to you by the show of hands. Then we can go over to the questions. But member Heron. Okay, we can start with the first 2. Member Heron, I hand over to you, and then Member Lacker thereafter, and then we can go to the answers of the first round.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation on the budget. I'm on page 451 under the program for human settlements, and I'm looking at the delivery target of 5,317 housing units and 1,404 service sites, and I'm raising a concern and a question around the very low delivery targets given the scale of our housing crisis. I noticed that further down in that paragraph there's reference to looking at alternative and non-traditional financing models. And we've heard about this, I think, for quite some time, certainly since the beginning of this term of office. But I don't think we can keep reading about it in budget books without actually seeing that there is a line item in the budget where we find this alternative and non-traditional financing for this housing crisis. So perhaps the department can tell us what progress they're making with this approach to finding alternative funding. That's page 451. Also on page 451 is reference to the Western Cape Infrastructure Framework. We received a presentation a couple of months ago on a draft Western Cape Infrastructure Framework, if I remember correctly. We were supposed to get the full framework once it was developed. It's in this book as if it's been finalized, but I don't think we've seen it. If I'm wrong, you can please correct me. I move to page 455. At the top of the page, there's the Leeudoop precinct will be handed over to the successful developer. I have a question as to whether the successful developer has been identified and when we will get information about how that project will be constructed and developed. On page 455 are some other projects, but I see no mention of the Tafelberg school site, or whatever number on Main Road it is now called. So I have a question about the Tafelberg school project not being in the budget book, and also what happened with the heritage application and what's the implications of that for the development of the site. On page 457, there's reference to the rollout of 3,900 new social rental housing units within the next 3 years. And then in that same paragraph, it's conditional or prerequisite for the delivery is adequate consolidated capital grant funding. So perhaps the department can tell us which projects have actually received the consolidated capital grant funding or the social housing or SHRA funding in order for them to progress, which of all the projects are actually funded and which are still pending. I won't be much longer, Chair. Just on page 461, and there was the risk, one of the risks that was shared with us in the presentation, but which is not in the budget documentation, is the lack of funding in order to do a facilities assessment of provincially owned rental accommodation or housing accommodation, and I'm wondering why that funding is not available and how we will manage the maintenance of rental accommodation. But then I'm also wondering on page 461 where rental income is recorded. Is it part of departmental receipts? And if so, is it in here? Because I don't see it. See under rent on land is the closest thing I can find, and it is 0 as far as I can see. So where's the rental income from departmental rental stock? Just on the alternative and blended finance fund that the Minister of Finance mentioned or announced in her budget speech, and then she illustrated or indicated some infrastructure projects from this ABF reserve. Is there any reason why public housing is not regarded as infrastructure that can be funded over a long term and included in this alternative and blended finance reserve fund that's been established? I don't understand why housing, provincial rental accommodation even, couldn't be financed over long term using the ABF reserve. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Lacker.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon once again. My first question, Chair, would be on page 441. The point of reference would be the core functions of the department, which is also referred to as the department's constitutional imperative to act as the Western Cape's Provincial Road Authority. And I want to check, Chairperson, in respect of the department's mandate, can we get an update on the implementation of the new provincial roads delivery model? How has it impacted on the district's municipalities, and are there any job losses recorded so far? And also, Chair, last year, I think we spent the whole year discussing the underspending of conditional grants by the department, which resulted in the provinces returning 300 million to the national government. Can I check what is the state of readiness this year? Have all business plans been submitted and approved? But also, are we ready to fully spend the conditional grants in this financial year? On page 442, can we get the views? Okay, the point of reference would be on the infrastructure, including the construction and maintenance of human settlements. And I want to check in the department's view, or what is the department's view on the proposed building of a wall along the N2? Was the department ever consulted, and if so, what did you make any commitments to support the project financially? And then, Chair, again, under safeguarding and leveraging the provincial's immovable assets, in terms of safeguarding the provincial assets, what is the department's view and position on the auctioning of Cape Town? I think there's been a selling of the Good Hope Center for plus minus 135 million. And was the department consulted as the Department of Infrastructure and Public Affairs? And was this issue supported by the department? Then paragraph 2 of 443, what justification was given to the department for the projects that are listed on paragraph 2, especially with the understanding that some grants like the flood disaster repairs were never meant to be permanent? And secondly, what are the reasons for the reduction of in asset finance reserve and equitable share? Moving further, also on page 43, third sentence in paragraph C6, on the road maintenance backlog of 32 billion. Could you provide more details on this report? More details on this road maintenance backlog, including a breakdown per municipality. But also, can we also get, in terms of the coordinated infrastructure, more explanation on what is meant by reduced red tape in this context? And can we also get a confirmed water crisis in Pito municipality, if there is any work that will be carried out, that water scarce municipality could be addressed? Thank you, Chair.
Member Lacker, are you done? Can we go over to the answering?
I'm done for now, Chair, yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Minister, I then hand over to you.
No, thank you very much, Shane. Again, thank you for some very pertinent, deep penetrating questions. I think we do welcome it. I will start with Member Lecker first, and I'm going to cluster my responses, which as a legislator, I will answer it through that lens. Then I will hand over to the HOD and the relevant team, given that we, both members have covered, to an extent, human settlements, and they've covered the roads component. And there were also elements we were asked to deliver our comments or questions pertaining to the auctioning of land of another sphere of government, but I'll respond in that regard. Honourable Chair, in terms of the Bito water question or issue, as Member Lecker has said, to the best of my knowledge, Bito actually activated the desalination plant. Minister Berdel accordingly did respond to this informally in the House. So I think that is actually a question more posed for Minister Berdel and his department, given that the Disaster Management Centre has been actively busy since pre the festive season, noting that Knysna, George, Bito and Kanaland are the three municipalities within the Garden Route area that had taken certain council resolutions pertaining to the water crises which they had at that stage. I'm well aware that the desalination plant in Bito was activated together with the flow and the boreholes of the Kiribati River, producing sufficient kiloliters per hour to actually prevent ultimately a day zero scenario there. But again, the detail is more suited in the Department of Local Government because they played a more proactive role than we actually did. Chairperson, in terms of the road maintenance backlog per municipality, if I can, because it's a very detailed report. We have in the department what we call our version of an ESCOM report in terms of our provincial roads network, which we can provide the standing committee to. It breaks down the condition of our provincial network per district. It's a very lengthy document, and I think if I must just talk about that, it will take the entire session with this committee. So I can commit through the HOD and through our acting DDG of roads, we can provide you. It's a very detailed document. As I said, we call it the ESCOM of our roads network. It does not venture to tell you the maintenance backlog of municipal road networks. That is something we cannot expand on because, again, it is not covered by our report. This is a very mature report. It has been prepared for more than a decade, which is why the approach in terms of the new roads delivery model was considering the content of that report and the deterioration of our road network across each district and questioning the value for money principle and whether actually the existing agency model through districts were actually addressing the rapid deterioration in certain instances of our road network. So I can commit to providing the standing committee actually with what we call the ESCOM of our roads network. It is very clear, and we can also do a presentation, Chair, through you at an appropriate time in the future for that. Honourable Chair, in terms of the auctioning of by the City of Cape Town of certain land assets or buildings, again, that is another sway of government. It is well within the mandate. MFMA allows that. I can't comment on the sale and auctioning of the land. It's within the MFMA. It's well within the right. In the province, we have a differentiated approach. As I reported last year, we are busy categorizing all of our assets in terms of buildings and land, in terms of what is land that can be developed, what is land that is commercially viable, and what is actually land that we need to dispose of. But again, there is relevant legislation which guides me as the minister and my HOD and the team here, how we seek to utilize our provincial assets. Again, that is confined to our asset base. We do not infringe or dictate to the local sphere of government how they must dispose of or repurpose or reutilize their assets. So that is just my comment as the minister on the sale of the Good Hope Centre. Chair, in terms of Program 2, the Honourable Member asked of the wall, and I'd love to put it again on record, that A, we take note of the City of Cape Town Mayor's announcement of the wall along the N2 corridor. Secondly, we further take note of the comments by Alderman JP Smith. I can put it on record that at this stage, there is no formal discussion between my department as the relevant road authority and the City of Cape Town, which means there is no formal commitment of any funding of my department in any form in this budget. That does not say that the City of Cape Town will be seeking to engage us in due course, but at this stage, there's been no formal form of discussion between ourselves and the City of Cape Town, and those are the facts, unlike what we have observed in the media, the distortion of those facts. Obviously, I reserve, as the Minister, my comment on my own personal thought of a wall until I have seen what the City are actually contemplating, what they call a wall along the N2. Then in terms, Honourable Lekker, you talk about the underspending of grants, and again, that's something the HOD will expand on now, but we never gave back 300 million. I reiterate, it was unilaterally taken back, which ultimately caused the first initiation of a process of intergovernmental dispute. However, as part of this budget cycle, and the HOD can expand on that, we've actually been allocated an additional almost close to 370 million, ironically, by the same department who took 300 million unilaterally. But the HOD can expand on that because we actually welcome the additional allocation, given that it's earmarked over the MTF cycle for the informal settlement upgrading partnership grant solely, not for the HSDG component. Honourable Lekker, you ask on page 441, the new roads delivery model. I wish to reiterate again, Honourable Chair, like I've done to the Standing Committee, and I do so again to put it on record. The new roads delivery model, and you will see even in our budget, the 365 million is only for those district municipalities where the agency function has not been terminated. That 365 million rand is for the West Coast District Municipality and the Overberg District Municipality, which means the Central Karoo, Garden Route, and the Cape Winelands, we are terminating our agreement with the district municipalities. There will be absolutely no job losses because we have been paying for the staff for almost more than 20 years. Where individuals might well be investigated and those must conclude, which is why, as much as the new roads delivery model kicks in the 1st of April, the HR processes for the district need to conclude because we were not part of that. And I've been very clear with the trade unions. I've been very clear with the district municipalities. There will be no job losses. Nobody will get paid less. In actual fact, to the data that I've seen thus far, certain pay levels might need to be harmonized so they can actually be increased to be the same as the provincial level. So please, I know that certain members are concerned. It's part of your constituencies where you are. I would love you to convey this message. At the moment, we are busy concluding our process ahead of the 1st of April. We are obviously busy with the DPSA at the moment. Again, the HOD can touch on that. But this is, I can say without fear or favor, nobody is going to lose their work. Sadly, because of the distortive information, Honourable Member Lekker, among others in 2 of the 3 districts, where the municipal administration has sought to distort the facts, we have actually seen applications for early retirement, which is now being repackaged by certain political parties as people actually losing their work because the local councils did not provide through the relevant bodies at their level, their members and our workers of roads with the appropriate information. Of course, we can't communicate at this stage with our staff members because they are still bound and linked to their 2 basic trade unions. So we are engaging their trade unions at the provincial level. And once that is concluded, then just prior to the 1st of April, we will then be engaging our staff with a very clear message because we have noted the distorted information that has been spread in 2 of those 3 districts, which we are well aware of, and we are concerned, given that we made this announcement. It was based on the principle of what is within the agency agreement, which was annually renewed. It was annually served before that council. It was signed by the municipal manager and the relevant CFO in those districts. So it's quite alarming that suddenly we are seeing distortion of information in 2 of the 3 districts. Now I go over to Member Heron. Member Heron. Our targets versus the growing need. Indeed, I do agree with you. But what you see before you is what is being funded through the relevant grants. You further ask in terms of the alternative funding, which I spoke of last year. And again, I do not engage the standing committee with frivolous pipe dreams. I indicate to you my intent. In this way, we have been in discussion with the Provincial Treasury in terms of how that alternative funding will look. The Honourable Minister of Finance in the province touched on the alternative blended financing, the off-sheet and the on-sheet balance sheet. And in my budget speech on the 24th of March, I will expand on that, given that we are busy finalizing how that financing vehicle will look. One of my priorities for the last 7 years as a minister has been the unlocking of affordable housing, which includes affordable rental modalities for our citizens across this province, including those who wish to live in the inner city but at an affordable rate, but who do not seek ownership of that opportunity. So I will expand on that. We are busy finalizing it, and I will expand it on the 24th of March with a bit more detail, although I can indicate that in June, what I will be touching on the 24th of March, you will see the realization and the formal creation of a fund, which at this stage, and I put this between brackets, it's called the Western Cape Infrastructure Fund. It might have a new name by the time we formally launch it in June, which will seek to fund that which both grants cannot. We are engaging and observing how other countries are doing this in Africa and across the world. My colleague, Minister Barkman, has been engaging the World Bank. So when we announce this vehicle, among others, that will fund our affordable housing pipeline, hence I touched on the singular pipeline, which you also touched on. It is to fund specific projects and programs which traditional grant funding will never unlock. So the alternative blended financing approach and the variable means of financing our pipeline will be expanded on. And once we announce the fund, how the fund will work and who all the key sector partners are and investors through that fund. And the formal announcement will be made in June because it's a partnership between the Department of Infrastructure and Treasury, given that these are the two bodies that take the lead in ensuring we unlock our potential of our pipeline. In terms of the Western Cape Infrastructure Fund, Infrastructure Framework 2050, again, you can see all the acronyms, why we need a new name for the fund. As I said to the Standing Committee last year, this is a living document. We have been engaged in this document. We have been engaging the Standing Committee chairperson, and we did offer last year, should the Standing Committee request another update or another, encourage chairperson through you that perhaps Standing Committee considers that in your deliberations after our presentation, because this document has now matured. You will see in the singular infrastructure pipeline, the maturity levels, and again on the 24th of March, I will expand on that, given that we are ready to even take that pipeline to make it live before we formally announce the creation of the Western Cape Infrastructure Fund during the course of June 2026. Chair, in terms of Leola Precinct, I will ask that the HOD do touch on it. There is some good progress we have made. Again, I made the announcement last year, and I committed to the Standing Committee. I do not make announcements without pushing through to see the realization of those commitments. We identified the 5 inner city projects, and just by way of watch this space, Honourable Chair, tomorrow morning the Premier and I will announce the 2nd or the 3rd inner city project, which forms part of the 5 I announced last year, showing a commitment is followed through. We are seeking to getting it done in terms of this financial year, but I'll just ask the HOD just expand on that. There is some good news. In terms of Earth 353 on Main, again, we have noted the distortion, Honourable Chairperson, of what actually the Heritage Western Cape recommendations are, which we welcome. They do not stand in the department's way in terms of the subdivision. The other component of the recommendations focus on the heritage aspect of what will, on the portion which we've been very clear since last year, February, will focus on the DSD component, which is, I think, which a lot of the recommendations are. The technical team are already busy, and actually can just provide the Standing Committee with a clear timeline, but it's no stoppage sign for us. The part which will be subdivided is what we will be now focusing on, given that that is what we have permission to do so in terms of the relevant local government legislation and also the national heritage legislation, which we will now adhere to, but actually can expand on that. Then in terms of the social rental units, again, I will ask that HOD expand on that, but I must indicate, Chairperson, that if you do note, and all provinces are now confronted with this, there has been a reduction in the SHRA funding over the MTF cycle. And the HOD and I have been engaging Provincial Treasury and other relevant role players who are looking at finding an alternative to how we can unlock our pipelines, capabilities and capacities into the, actually for more than a decade beyond the end of our term. But also I'll also actually touch on which projects have received funding, but I do have a rider with that. That funding will never be enough to unlock its true potential. Then in terms of our rental income, again, I will hand it over to the HOD. So Chair, as the executive authority, I've now given the legislative focus areas of my response, the administrative and co-governance aspects, which the HOD and I are jointly responsible for. I'll hand over to the HOD and then she will delegate accordingly to the rest of the team. Thank you, HOD.
Thank you very much, Minister. So, to Member Heron, the issue about raising awareness and concern, the targets for human settlements versus the funding, just remember that even when the funding is cut, the targets is not cut. The target remains the same, and that's part of our problem. And that is why there is a need to find alternative sources of funding. So we share that concern. We want to raise again the issue of targets remaining the same while funding is cut over the MTF. But again, in terms of the progress made in finding alternative sources of funding, and ministers touched upon this, safe to say that we are in a process where we are waiting 2 things from the Treasury. First
is the engagement with National Treasury around how these things are procured and how the deals are concluded. And the second portion of it, of course, is the payback mechanism. There was also a question linked to this that asks, why is the social housing component not linked to the reserve? When Minister Baartman announced in her budget speech about the reserve, she spoke about the asset finance reserve for roads. Roads asset finance reserve cannot be used to pay back or be invested to pay back human settlements. Therefore, even within the department, there is a consideration between Minister, the CFO, myself, and the team around the purpose of the asset finance reserve for human settlements and what that could be used for in conjunction with the Treasury from an investment and a repayment module point.
Chair, I can't hear the.
Yeah, thank you very much, Member Heron. Actually, we seem to have lost you now. I am just trying quickly to ascertain whether they have lost connection on their side.
Apologies, Chair. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much, HOD.
So as far as the AFR is concerned, there is an AFR for human settlements, and we are in conversation with the Treasury as to how some of that money could be invested so that we can do the same thing from an alternative and blended financing point of view with the AFR. Then when we talk about the SHRA funding, we are sitting with projects on the shelf at the moment where the projects are ready for implementation, but we do not have SHRA funding. In that regard, we have approached the infrastructure fund, which used to sit with Infrastructure South Africa, but was announced by the President in his State of the Nation address that would change and that the infrastructure fund would sit now on its own and report directly to the Treasury. The Treasury, the National Treasury, has given an indication to the infrastructure fund that they could work with the Western Cape in order for us to pilot an initiative where they will be looking at affordable housing mechanisms and the funding thereof through the infrastructure fund directly. We are in conversation with them to finalize this so that we are actually able to start funding our projects that's currently on the shelf as a direct result of SHRA not having sufficient funds. Then when we talk about facility condition assessments and why the funding is not available, the National Department of Human Settlements has never made money available for maintenance or facility condition assessments. And this was on the basis of the provision in the law that indicated that the national minister will at some point in time announce, which she did, that all stock, all holding stock, in other words, rental stock that provinces hold, at some point be transferred to municipalities. The problem with that is if stock has not been maintained over years, municipalities don't want to accept that stock as their stock. And therein lies the difficulty. Again, the way in which we fund this is for us to review the funding mechanism and talk about the utilization of the separate operating account in order for us to say, is this a way for us to fund and maintain the stock on hand? Then when we come to the question about where is rental recorded, I'm just going to hand that over to Shafida, and then Pauline will deal with 353 on main as well as Leolo. Shafida?
Thank you.
Oh, we've got an echo on our side, so if you can just put one of the computers maybe on the oh, there we go.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Apologies for that. So on page 461, under departmental receipts, there's an item called sales of goods and services other than capital assets. So rentals received on our properties that we have leases on, that we've concluded leases with lessees, will all be recorded under that item. So we have budgeted for rental receipts. Thank you.
Pauline?
In response to the question on 353 on main, the final heritage impact assessment report has been completed and it was provided to Heritage Western Cape in terms of compliance with the National Heritage Resource Act. And in terms of Leeuloop, that we do have a preferred bidder and that will serve at Cabinet on the 25th of March. Thank you.
Then, Minister, I think we have dealt with all of the questions. You have answered all of the others.
Thank you, Chair. And back to you.
Thank you very much, Minister HOD and the rest of the department. We are now going into the second round of questions.
No.
I see Member Petrus's hand is up, followed by Member Heron.
For a long time, Chair.
Member Petrus, we are going to afford you the opportunity now to ask your question. Just waiting on some of the other members that might also want to ask questions in this round. So we've got first Member Petrus, then Member Heron, and then Member Lacker. So if we can handle it in that order, thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the clarification of the Minister. I don't want to go back, but I want to go back to the new roads delivery model. The Minister touched on it, but I want to know about the salary scales. If the salary scale of the department is less than that of the municipalities, will it be increased or upgraded to the scale of municipalities? And then the offices of the Department of Infrastructure that's currently in Oudtshoorn, will it move to George or will it remain there?
Thank you very much, Member Petrus. Member Heron.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to follow up on some of the responses we got. I want to go back to the Minister's response with regard to the sale of public land by the City of Cape Town, and that it's a different sphere of government. And just looking at the documents that the city puts before its council, the city does consult with the province before it disposes of public land. But I think there's a problem that it's consulting with provincial treasury and not perhaps the departments that may require that land or may raise objections to the sale of land that could be used for public purposes like housing. So yes, the City of Cape Town did consult with the province, but the go-ahead or the lack of any objection or the lack of any proposal that the land could be used for alternative purposes is not raised, because it's the department that's consulted by the City of Cape Town is Provincial Treasury. And I think there was, in the Tafelberg litigation, the issue of whether other spheres of government should be consulted was raised by the National Minister of Human Settlements when she entered into the litigation to raise exactly that point, although she was raising it obviously under GIAMA and not the Municipal Asset Transfer Regulations. But I think there needs to be some attention given to which department in the provincial government is consulted when the City of Cape Town or any municipality in the province decides that they want to dispose of public assets, and whether Treasury is the right department to be solely responsible for giving the provincial government's response. If I can go back to the question around the rental income from the assets, and the HOD said that the problem is National Department of Human Settlements doesn't give any funding for, first of all, conducting an assessment of the asset, and secondly, for maintaining the asset. But I mean, the asset, as far as I understand, is a provincial asset. And these rental units were built largely during the apartheid era. They've got tenants in them. I mean, the most famous ones are the ones here on Philip Khosana Drive. There are plenty others. Why is the rental income from these units not used to maintain the units or to conduct the assessment? And if we go to page 461, and I think the CFO or one of the directors indicated that it's the rental income for public housing is recorded under sales of goods and services other than capital assets. I mean, I'm not an accountant, but I find that very strange that rental income is categorized under there, and why it's not indicated separately. And maybe we can get an indication of how much of the 110 million rand revenue that now makes up the department's budget is from rental income, as part of my question as to why it can't be used to, first of all, assess the structures and then also perhaps maintain them. On the question of the funding that's cut, I guess it's a bigger question about the provincial government's priorities. Why, when it comes to this housing crisis, why is there no allocation from the provincial equitable share when we can make funding available for policing? Policing is not a concurrent function, where housing is a concurrent function, but we can fund a policing plan, but we can't fund a housing plan when we have a housing crisis. So what is the department doing about fighting for some provincial equitable share to assist it in its housing crisis? If I understood the HOD correctly, none of the projects, I think she said this, none of the projects have yet received SHRA funding. So how does the department say in its budget that there'll be 3,900 units delivered in the MTEF period of social housing, but the HOD is not able to identify any current project where there is funding from the SHRA in order to deliver that housing? So, I mean, unless the HOD I misunderstood her, I think she said that there's currently no project has received the SHRA funding in order to go ahead. So it does raise questions as to what is the pipeline and how realistic is that pipeline if there is no funding for it. I think those are my follow-up questions. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Heron. Member Lacker.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'll start at page 449, Chair, in respect of the public works infrastructure. And I want to check, Chairperson, on the issue of budget uncertainty, which undermines a credible and impactful infrastructure pipeline and has a major impact on the sector's ability to respond to the infrastructure demands. Now, I want to check, Chair, on matters of public infrastructure. There's a long-standing matter around the delays relating to land ownership authorizations involving the Department of Public Works and the Western Cape government. And this includes chairperson the Mahama housing project in Ward 97 in Khayelitsha. And I think this project is one of the projects that has been stalled for more than 4 years due to unresolved ownership authorization. And at this stage, the city of Cape Town has already completed the underlying infrastructure and road construction. But the development of a top structure seems to be an issue that cannot proceed without the required authorization. And in that regard, Chairperson, I want to check in terms of that particular issue, as well as the electrification of several informal settlements in areas where ESCOM has approved electrification projects, but the implementation cannot proceed because, once again, there's an issue of land on which these communities reside is owned by either Public Works or the provincial government, and which requires authorization. And I want to check, because I know the MEC is aware of these matters, but can we get, or can you tell us how are these issues are going to be resolved, and perhaps how is he going to intervene to unlock these projects that will benefit the communities of Khayelitsha? Then on page 451, Chair, the DOI remains committed to expanding access to housing opportunities. And I think as the ANC, we welcome this this commitment by the department. But I want to understand why this does not apply to the people of Khayelitsha, for instance. We know in December 2019, the head of department, Mr. Mkuli, signed the approval of Metro, the application of retrofitting of the John Dev housing development, and the budget was made available for this. Can the MEC tell us why this money was never spent, and what is the update so far with regards to this project? And again, Chair, on 451, the last paragraph, on the point of reference of 1.66 billion under the HSDH with the delivery targets, as mentioned there, of 5317 and 1404 sites, service sites. I want to check there, Chairperson, exactly what factors contributes to this drastic drop in the number of houses delivered. Is it a matter of a policy decision to not building for the poor while handing over public land to private developers to rake profits from the property boom, or while the people are suffering? What is it exactly that is happening there? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. That then concludes the second round of questions. Minister, I am handing over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. For this one, I'll switch off the camera. I think that contributed to us losing our Wi-Fi signal there. But Chair, through you to Member Petrus, the new roads delivery model in terms of salary scales, nobody can be worse off than where they currently are. So the package, which from the lowest level to the top management who will become across, they cannot be worse off. And again, that is why we are busy engaging the SAMU and IMATU's legal representatives, given that there are questionable salary packages in certain districts, which actually is an abuse of the funding which we ultimately actually provided to district municipalities, which inflates certain individuals' salary packages beyond what even the sector allows. But I must respect that there is chamber discussions between our various legal teams, so I can't expand on that. But the package cannot be worse off than what you currently own or are getting. In terms of the Oudtshoorn camp, remember the province has the DRE camp, which is ours, and just a bit further down the same road, Member Peters, which you will very well know. There's also the Garden Route camp again. This is part of our current discussions with the district municipality, given that more than 20 years, we've actually funded a lot of the expansions and installations and so forth. So I'm awaiting for the legal outcome of that as well. But we in Oudtshoorn, we do have our own provincial, actually district road camp. All of our heavy vehicles are parked there. All of the provincial signage, which is used in our network, is there. Even our mechanical shop is there, to be quite honest, because I have been there. So I will await, because there are a number of other offices across the Garden Route district, but also the other two districts, which is part of our discussion, and I must respect that. Member Heron, indeed, we were not consulted by the City of Cape Town. If they consulted Provincial Treasury, and this is just me making a academic assumption, it's because James Foss's department, as the relevant NICO member, deals with the acquisition and disposal of assets in the City of Cape Town's instance. So I think that is a bit of a discussion one will need to have with the city, who they engage with, but I think this has been the norm for many, many, many years, if I'm not mistaken, by the entire local government when they seek to do this. I will ask that the HUD actually just expand a bit on because you did touch on the court papers pertaining to the Tafelberg matter, where I think you actually referred to the Western Cape Land Administration Act and Guyama, which obviously was the basis of our approach in the court as well. So I can also actually just expand it. So I think all members of the standing committee can have clarity on that. Then in terms of rental stock, and I'm going to answer this in two ways, because last year we did have a discussion pertaining to the last remaining municipalities which has rental stock, which in theory is supposed to be funded through the CRU program. Member Heron, you yourself were a MICO member who were tasked with this portfolio, and you would know that the CRU is a failed program. The social housing program, which is funded through SHRA, is a different approach. And I know last year when we engaged the National Department delegation who came to speak with all of the municipalities and province, even the City of Cape Town asked, why can't the CRU program, which is a failure, because your income will never be able to substantiate your maintenance requirements given the age of the stock, why can't the CRU program be lapsed into the responsibility of SHRA? And then we know there is another form of funding. The City of Cape Town themselves actually is supportive of this concept, because the CRU program is a failing program nationally. In terms of province, our own rental stock, and I can ask the HUD just to tell you how much of our funding we get this income compared to the expenditure of maintaining our own rental stock. It is a bit of a headache for us, which is why by law we offered some of our rental stock to the local governments. The City of Cape Town at that stage did not seek to actually take up our rental stock. Drakensberg, the first phase of our transfer is in process. In Breda Valley, we have concluded that with title deeds, obviously providing funding for them, funding them, but also ensuring that the units are at an acceptable standard, hence the funding that was provided in that instance. So there are instances where we have transferred from our responsibility to the local government with the relevant title deeds, given that in the bulk of these stocks, like you rightfully say, they were constructed during the apartheid era, and some of the occupants or the lessees of our stock has been living there since before the dawn of democracy. So the transfer and the title deeds to the municipality did come with a discussion about the tenanting options, also the ownership options, whichever they can conclude. A good example is Breda Valley and Drakensberg, where we have concluded this as well. And in Stellenbosch, we are still busy with that process. Why don't we fight for more provincial equitable share? Member Aaron, that is a discussion, again, which stretches beyond my portfolio. I think every cabinet member wishes we could get more of the PES, but obviously education and health gets the biggest chunk of that. But I also actually also expanded it because on the PT meetings, this is a discussion, but again, it's a battle that these It is discussed every year, but it's also what the key priorities are for us to move forward, given that the quantum that is required to address and eradicate the housing backlog is the last time we had a figure of close to 50 billion, which the last time I checked is almost the entire provincial government's provincial equitable share. So and I'll just ask the HOD expand on that. In terms of social housing, I've read our descriptor. It does says it is dependent on SHRA funding. Given the decline over the MTF cycle, and that is why the HOD and I have met with the Minister of Finance and the Head of Treasury in this province to say we do need to look at funding new affordable rental models as part of our umbrella of affordable housing, which I have consistently spoken of over the last 3 years. Given that across the world, social housing is becoming a bit of a problem given in its funding model. You are well aware with even SHIs in this country recalibrating their balance sheets and looking at how they can, to some extent, still ensure that affordable rental through what we call social housing is still partially funded to some extent. Again, noting the grant comes from SHRA through to the SHI, not through the provincial government, which is why I have very limited input and say, other than that all 9 MECs across this country are concerned that the need for affordable rental stock is rising, but the funding reduction over the MTF for all 9 provinces is worrisome. That is where I agree with you. There is a need for affordable rental options, which sadly the national grant can never address effectively, given what's going to happen over the next 3 years. HOD.
Thank you, Minister. So just on the issue around the 353 on main and the consultation with governments, local, national, and provincial. We, as the Western Cape Department of Infrastructure, are bound by the provisions of GIAMA and the Western Cape Land Administration Act. The municipalities are not. Even national government does not have a relevant Land Administration Act. Theirs consists of 2 or 3 pages and it speaks nothing about acquisitions or disposals as opposed to ours. So that need for consultation referred to in those court papers were directly linked to GIAMA and the Western Cape Land Administration Act, and that's where our provision come from. It's not a PFMA thing, it's not an MFMA thing. And for that reason, yes, while there's a need for a conversation, we cannot enforce any particular provision over local governments to consult with us as far as this is concerned. We must say we do have a good working relationship as far as immovable assets is concerned with the city, and the teams do converse about it, but there is no formal consultation happening before they sell any piece of their land on their asset register. Then, as far as the question for fighting for more equitable share, we do that. Remember when the team just presented, when Rivka presented the budget, she gave an indication that the delivery of human settlements, 89% of that is entirely grant funded. The rest of it is funds that we get from the equitable share because it's for items that's explicitly excluded from the grant and the grant provisions. When it comes to fighting for more equitable share, there is no more equitable share than what we were given. And for that reason, the alternative is to find alternative and blended finance methodologies. As far as the priorities of the DOI is concerned around that, the very first priority is roads, followed by human settlements, and thereafter general infrastructure. And that's not in a particular order between roads and human settlements, but because we do believe that both of these are critical as far as the vision, the Western Cape infrastructure vision, as far as the infrastructure framework is concerned. I'm just going to ask Shafida to give a proper breakdown of the 110 million as it's contained in the budget, so that there's a clear understanding around own receipts and what constitutes those. And thereafter, I will then go into the other questions. I'm just going to ask Brian then. When I responded to SHRA, I didn't say that no projects are funded from SHRA. I said due to the lack of funding from SHARA, we are exploring other avenues, such as with the infrastructure fund and the national treasury. So Brian will just give a list of which projects are funded and which are not, and then go into the rest of the human settlements questions. So Shafida, just in terms of the own receipts, please.
The entire table captured on page 461 is basically a template from National Treasury, and it then forces us to be compliant with what the criteria and the classification is being reported on. So therefore, under departmental receipts, when we look at the different definition criteria of each of those items, so it would be sales of goods and services of other than capital assets, then there's transfers received, there's interest, dividends, and rent on land. There's rates, there's sales of capital assets, and then financial transactions in assets and liabilities. So when the department generates revenue from the leases that it has with the tenants, we then classify it under sales of goods and services other than capital assets, and that is prescribed by the Standard Chart of Accounts issued by National Treasury. So therefore, when we do budget for it, we budget for this item, and under the included in the 110 million is 10 million that is linked directly to the rentals of the human settlements rental portfolio. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, Brian.
Thank you. Afternoon, Chair, afternoon, members. Yes, we have packaged 9 projects, and that's to the total amount of units is 4,187. These units, these projects, 2 of them, one is in Mossel Bay, one in Bito, and the balance is in the city of Cape Town. I'll just quickly run through them. Greenwood Mews, that's in Bito municipality. Then we have Mountain View, that's in Mossel Bay, that's 552 units. Rivergate Social Housing, 1,162 units. Urban Peak, 435 units. Arnold Wilhelm, 180 units. Pine Road, 267 units. Victory Park Rental Estate, 502 units. Region Extension 3, 223 units. And then Modus Vivendi is 398. That's a total of 4,187. To date, all these projects has been packaged, but we are still awaiting. None of them has been funded by SHRA. We haven't had indication yet. It has been in the public domain that SHRA has been experiencing problems internally. So the confirmation of the funding is still awaited. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Jojo, I just want to confirm, does that conclude everything from your side?
No, Chair, there was also questions by Member Lekker around the electrification and then the Mahama project. So Brian, do you want to give input or should I go?
You can go ahead, actually.
Thank you, Chair. Then through you, as far as the electrification issue is concerned, we have actually raised this through the committee that the Premier Chair for Energy with Eskom, because to a very large extent, this department is expected to bankroll Eskom. We have to fund in the interim the electrification, and when Eskom gets the money and gives the money to the relevant municipalities, they pay us back. We can no longer afford to do that because we use the AFR, the Human Settlements AFR, to do that. So it's not just a matter of authorization. It is very much a matter of having the budget to implement some of these. So if I can just ask Chair through you that the details of the different projects where it is said that there is a matter of authorization, that we get these so that we can answer them in writing and specifically look at the detail and then give the facts. And the same then for the Mahama project. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, HOD and Minister and Department. We are now then going into the last set of questions, or the third round of questions. I see the hand of Member Petrus. Is there any other hands for this round? I see Member Lacker. And yeah, that is it at this stage. So, Member Petrus, you can go first, then followed by Member Lacker.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I need more information on that informal settlement upgrading partnership grant. And the other one, there's two. And what I want to know is, well, people who live in backyard, will they be able to benefit from that funding? Or how can we assist them?
Okay, thank you very much. And then Member Lacker.
Thank you, Chair. I want to get an understanding. Did the HOD said they will provide information, particularly around the Mahama project, as well as the electrification? Did I hear correctly?
If I can maybe answer, she can. The HOD can correct me if I'm wrong, but they said that we would. In our resolutions, we can just capture the specific projects and the specific cases where authorizations, the authorizations is being halted, and then they will be able to give us specific information regarding those authorizations. HOD, did I capture that correct?
Yes, Chair, thank you very much.
Perfect. So yeah, Member Lacker, that was the specific answer from the HOD. So do you have any other comments or questions?
Yes, I do, Chair.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Thank you, Chairperson. One question on 461, table 7.1, on the summary of receipt. I want to check, Chairperson, what are the reasons for the decrease in both the equitable share and the conditional grants? 2, 464, table 8.1, on the summary of payments and estimate. Again, what are the reasons for the decrease in subprogram 3 and subprogram 4? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. Through you to the department.
Chair, I'll leave all the finance questions to the finance people. I trust my finance team.
Okay.
Just to remember Petrus, the two grants I think he missed is the HSDG is the other grant the Honourable Member Petrus was, I think, keeping in mind. I couldn't quite hear the latter part of his question. I think it relates to the provision of services to backyarders. Now, Member Petrus at the moment, and I did engage Salga a week ago, the urban settlement development collegial or the study group in terms of our project provincial government, which I can share with the standing committee chair as part of your possible resolutions that we can provide you with the written information. What I did highlight was that at the moment it's only metros that have a third grant, which actually assists that they can provide additional services such as electrification of backyarders, such as concrete toilets and running water to backyarders as well. And that is the USDG grant, which non-metro municipalities do not have access to. So I did ask Salga to ultimately assist us in lobbying the National Treasury, but also to ensure that the conditions of the USDG actually give access to non-metro municipalities, so we can actually get the same level of service which all metros can give to backyarders across this country, to those living in backyards in non-metro areas, because a backyarder is a backyarder, whether you live in the city of Cape Town or whether you live in Cornwall, in George. A backyarder is a backyarder. Of course, I do follow what certain municipalities in the Western Cape are doing, their innovative approach to providing service by reallocating their own budgets to look at the electrification of backyarders, which again, it's partially funded through a grant which local government has access to, not province, but also other forms of services which they have access to, those specific grants, but it will never be enough to address the scale at which they would love to do it. Of course, we do find innovative submissions coming through to me and the HOD, which we engage Provincial Treasury and the relevant national departments on, given that there is now a phenomenon where a backyarders is a growing phenomenon in non-metro areas now too, given that it's also multi-generational in non-metro areas. But here it's all about the conditions of a specific grant, which enables metros to address this more effectively than non-metros. And perhaps, Chair, the Standing Committee can join me and the department in lobbying for directive and policy changes to the USDG grant, so that we can actually assist all of our backyarders across this province, not just those who are benefiting because of the conditions of a grant, which is only focused on the metro areas at the moment. A backyarder in the city of Cape Town, it's a backyarder in Cornwall, it's the same person. They live in the same conditions mostly.
Thank you, Minister. So the treasury funding that the department received is always mixed. So the provincial treasury will indicate to the department what the different portions of the respective funds are that the department is allocated to. And then if I look at the biggest drop, like conditional grants was decreased from the 25-26 year to the 26-27 year because of the disaster funding that the department received only in 25-26 and not in 26-27. And then if I look at the provincial revenue fund tax received, that is also a specific allocation from provincial treasury, and you can see there is a big increase from 463 million to 1.3 billion. So irrespective of the funding sources, the department's base will still be what it's supposed to be, but provincial treasury will indicate what the different funding sources is. Thank you.
And sub-program 3 and 4.
Okay, so the reduction in sub-program 3 and 4 would then be the disaster funding that was received in the previous year that the department didn't receive in the current year, and also in program 4 would then be the cut in the human settlements grants that we have explained in our initial presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister and the department. We've gone through all 3 rounds of questions. So if there is any follow-ups on the last round of questions, I'm going to just open up for hands quickly, just should there be any follow-ups with regards to the last round of questions. I do not see any hands currently. Procedural officer, through you, if I can maybe ask you, is there any members of the public that indicated that they would like to make any inputs or ask any questions to the department?
I haven't received any requests from members of the public to make oral input, Chairperson, or written input.
Okay, so so if there is any members of the public and they would like to make any input with regards to what has been discussed today, you're more than welcome to do so. I am now, Minister, through you and the department, going to give you a opportunity to provide any closing remarks from your side before we will then before we excuse you. But yeah, just if you can have the opportunity for any closing remarks on your side.
No, Chair, I think just in brief to thank the Standing Committee of Infrastructure of the Western Cape through your Chair and your members for the opportunity to firstly unpack our budget for the 26-27 cycle, but also for your questions, which we have thoroughly and fully answered as far as possible, but also along the way making commitments to providing you with certain information, but also requesting certain information from the Standing Committee, but also given where we are embarking on as a department, the Premier has tasked his cabinet and his provincial government to getting it done. We are getting it done, and it will be an interesting journey for the financial year 26-27. And we will be extending our invitation to a lot of our events to the Standing Committee so that you can see what we have presented to you here in action as we will shape the future Western Cape together. And you are a key stakeholder on that journey to that future Western Cape. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. And yes, to the members, you would note that you have received the invite to a title deed handover. To those of you that have not replied to the procedural officer. Minister, you and the department, thank you very much for the deliberations. It's truly appreciated, and the amount of effort that you go through in order to furnish us with the answers. And thank you very much for the work that you do. It is truly appreciated. So with that, I am going to excuse yourself and the department in order for us to make our resolutions, etc. as a committee. Thank you very much. Procedural officer, can you just indicate when I can go ahead with regards to the consideration and the adoption?
Chair, you may go ahead. The department has left the platform.
Okay, thank you very much. Members, from my side, I really want to thank you all for the questions that you have asked with regards to the budget. I think it is there is some challenging times that might be lying ahead, and I really thank the thorough questioning. We are now going over to the consideration and adoption of the draft committee report on vote 10 of infrastructure. So if by the show of hands I can get an indication of everyone that is in support of the of vote 10. So by the show of hands, if I can just first get everyone that is in support, we will then handle the non-support and the minority view should there be any. So everyone in support, if they can please raise their hands. So, I would just like to confirm with regards to in support, it is myself. I've got Member Van Wyk, Member Bryant, Member Heron, Member Petrus, Member Lacker, Member Mbombo, or you?
I'm not in support, Chair.
Okay, can you then lower your hand? So, member, if I can ask everyone that is in support of vote 10 to please raise their.
We are still in support.
Hand. I'm asking for everyone that is in support. Yes, member. Okay. Procedural officer, do you have everyone that's in support?
That is correct, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I ask everyone to just lower their hands that's in support? Beatrice, your hand is up. There we go. All members that is not in support of this budget vote. And there we have member Lacker. That is not in support. Procedural officer, do you have everyone not in support?
I do, Chair.
And is there any specific minority view that one needs to be raised?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay.
The ANC would like to exercise its minority view in line with Rule 90, not to support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Lacker. Procedural officer, can I ask you to then just flight the report? I will then read it to the committee. Just waiting. You can just indicate when you are done, and then I will read it out to the committee.
I'm ready, Chair.
Thank you very much. So the report will read as follows. The report on the Standing Committee on Infrastructure on vote 10, infrastructure, in the schedule to the Western Cape Appropriation Bill 1/2026, dated the 17th of March 2026 as follows. The Standing Committee on Infrastructure, having considered the subject of vote 10, infrastructure, in the schedule of the Western Cape Appropriation Bill 1/2026, referred to in the committee in accordance with the Standing Rule 188, reports that it supports the vote. In accordance with Standing Rule 90, the African National Congress has expressed its minority view not to support this vote. If I can please get a proposer and a seconder for this, please. I have got Member Van Wyk proposing and Member Bryant seconding. Procedural officer, if we can just confirm that you have got that.
Chair.
So you have got that. We are now, we have then handled the consideration and adoption of the report, and I would like to now go on to the consideration and adoption of the draft committee annual report. And this was distributed to the members. So if I can please get a proposer and a seconder for this, it would be appreciated. I've got Member Bryant proposing, and I've got Member Van Wyk seconding. Thank you very much for that.
Chair.
Yes, Member Van Wyk.
That report that was flighted, was that the correct report there? It looked like 24, 25 on that report that came up.
Procedural officer, can you just check that for me, please?
Okay,
Okay. Procedure officer, can you just confirm that it was that it is the correct one that was now proposed and seconded?
There still appear to be 24, 25s coming through on further pages there.
Give me 1 second. Let me just check if it's the correct report that I've lighted.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Sorry for the hold up, Chair. This is the correct report.
So I just want to confirm it was the correct report that was proposed and seconded.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Committee members, we can then go over to the resolutions. I am going to tell you what I have captured and gathered from our deliberations. One is that we request a presentation that came from Member Heron, from a presentation from the maturity with regards to the singular pipeline document that was presented last year as well, but has now has seen significant changes in terms of how far they are. Then, with regards to Member Beatrice, a presentation on the USDG grant and the informal settlements upgrade grant. More details on exactly, I assume, how it functions and where it distributes to and what it can distribute to. That came from Member Beatrice. And then the department also requested specific cases with regard to the authorizations on the Mahana project, Member Lacker, that you referred to. But I'm wondering if you should not maybe give those specific cases in writing so that we can handle it in that manner. But I am happy to open it up to the floor for any other resolution that we might want to take. I see Member Heron's hand.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I was wondering if we could resolve to request or to invite the SHRA to a meeting to describe or to discuss with us the funding of social housing, the backlog, the projects that are in the pipeline, etc. And I mean, I think they are based in Johannesburg, so we can do an online meeting, but if we can hear from the SHRA what the challenges are with regard to funding of social housing projects, because I don't see what the point of having a pipeline is if we can't get funding for it. Thank you.
Perfect, 100% agree with that. Procedural officer, you've got that one?
I do, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member Lacker?
Thank you, Chair. It's actually the Mahama project, M-A-H-A-M-A.
That's
as well as the electrification in respect of the informal settlements in Khayelitsha. Then I think, Chair, if I remember well, I've also made a note here that the minister committed that a list on the new roads delivery model, the existing network. Now, the provincial roads network, the minister said the list could be provided to the committee. I think we missed that one with the resolutions.
Perfect, 100%.
That's all.
You've got that one as well?
I do, Chair.
Is there any other resolutions or actions that that any of the members would like to raise? In the absence of that, members, I would really like to Member Petrus.
Apology, Chair. That second resolution or about that grant. Can you just the reason for that we asked for that report, and that is to see how we can assist people in backyards. It is possible for you to do that. If not, it's fine.
Yes, I mean it's a resolution, so I think what we would do is that we can always ask the department to come and present the details to see how it can assist backyard. So we more than we can handle it in that way. So it's not a problem, because I know that was the sort of the premise, and that was also why we had the backyarders session just prior to SOPA. So yeah, 100% we can do it like that. That then brings us to the end of this meeting. Members, procedural officer, firstly, thank you very much to you for capturing everything and making sure everything is being sent timelessly to the members. That is greatly appreciated, as well as your correspondence with the department. I really appreciate that. Members, to all of the committee, thank you very much for your indulgence and your participation in the meeting. It is very much appreciated. And with that, I am adjourning this meeting on infrastructure. Thank you very much, and have a lovely afternoon further. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, members.